Look down at your hands right now. The skin cells covering your fingers are, on average, less than 4 weeks old. The bone beneath them is younger than the decade you are living through. The atoms inside those bones, the carbon, the calcium, the phosphorus, arrived from elsewhere and will leave again, every single one of them. You are not the body you were born with. The laws of biology have been systematically dismantling and rebuilding you, piece by molecular piece, for every year of your life. Most of the atoms currently composing your body were, within the last decade, part of the soil, the ocean, the air, or another living creature. The person who learned to walk, who sat in a childhood bedroom, who felt that specific summer light through a window, that person has, in a very literal physical sense, ceased to exist. Their atoms have scattered into the atmosphere and the ground. What you are is something new, a different arrangement of matter, running the same story. And this raises the question that philosophers have circled for 2,000 years, and that biologists can now measure with instruments. If every part of the machine has been replaced, is it still the original machine? And if the machine is you, what does that make the thing inside it that calls itself I? The answer is more unsettling, and more beautiful than you expect. The Greeks told a story about a ship. It belonged to Theseus, the Athenian hero who killed the Minotaur, and the Athenians preserved it in their harbor for centuries as a monument. But wood rots, so they replaced each plank, one by one, as it decayed, keeping the ship seaworthy, keeping its shape, maintaining its name. The philosopher Plutarch, writing in the 1st century AD, recorded the question this raised among Athenian philosophers. When every plank had been replaced, was it still the ship of Theseus? It had no original material left. It had only the form, the pattern, the continuity of maintenance. Thomas Hobbes, 17 centuries later, sharpened the problem. If someone had collected all the original planks as they were removed and rebuilt a second ship from them, which ship was the real ship of Theseus? The one with the original wood, or the one with the original form? For most of human history, this was purely a philosophical puzzle. Then, in the late 20th century, biology gave us tools to measure it. Jonas Frisen is a neurologist and cell biologist at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden. In 2005, his laboratory published a study in the journal Cell that used a forensic technique no one had ever applied to human tissue. In the 1950s and early 1960s, the United States and the Soviet Union detonated hundreds of nuclear weapons in the atmosphere. Those explosions created a massive spike in carbon-14, a radioactive isotope that does not normally exist in high concentrations in living tissue. The spike entered the food chain, was absorbed by plants, consumed by animals, and incorporated into the cells of every living human on Earth. After the 1963 Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, atmospheric carbon-14 levels began to fall in a precisely documented curve. Friesen realized something remarkable. Every cell in the human body contains DNA that was replicated at a specific moment in time, and that DNA incorporated carbon-14 at whatever atmospheric concentration existed at that exact moment. By measuring the carbon-14 level in a cell's DNA, you could calculate, within 1 or 2 years, when that DNA was last copied, and therefore, when that cell was born. He called it bomb pulse radiocarbon dating. And what he found dismantled the comfortable fiction that your body is a stable, permanent object. The cells lining your small intestine, the ones absorbing nutrients from every meal you eat, are replaced every 5 days. 5 days. The cells of your skin shed and regenerate on a cycle of 2 to 4 weeks. The calluses on your palms, the fingerprints that legally identify you, the birthmarks on your arms, all composed of cells that did not exist a month ago. Your red blood cells, the oxygen carriers that have been traveling your veins since before you can remember, live for approximately 120 days. Every 4 months, your entire blood supply is renewed. Your liver, which detoxifies your blood and metabolizes your food, regenerates its cells on a cycle of roughly 1 year. The liver you carry today is not the liver that processed your meals 3 years ago. Your fat cells have an average lifespan of approximately 10 years, according to a 2008 study by Kirsty Spalding, also at the Karolinska Institute. Your skeleton, which feels like the most permanent part of you, is continuously remodeled. Bone is living tissue, maintained by 2 competing cell types. Osteoclasts break down old bone matrix. Osteoblasts build new bone in its place. Friesen's measurements showed that the average age of the human skeleton is roughly 10 years. The bones holding you upright right now have, on average, existed for about a decade. Even the heart replaces itself, though more slowly. A 2009 study by Olof Bergmann at the Karolinska Institute used the bomb pulse technique on cardiac muscle. He found that the heart replaces roughly 1% of its muscle cells per year at age 25, declining to less than 0.5% per year by 75. By middle age, nearly half of a person's heart muscle cells are new, cells that did not exist when that person was a child. At the far end of longevity, there is the lens of the eye. The crystalline proteins at the center of the human lens form before birth, and in most people, are never replaced. When you look through your eyes, you are looking through proteins that predate your earliest memory, but they are the exception. The overwhelming majority of your body, by mass, by cell count, has been rebuilt within the last decade. And it is not just cells that are transient, it is the atoms inside them. Your body is not replacing old cells with new ones built from the same material. It is importing new atoms from the environment and exporting old ones continuously. The carbon in your muscles right now was, within the last 1 to 3 years, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, absorbed by a plant, eaten by you, and built into your tissue. The calcium in your bones was, within the last decade, dissolved in groundwater, bound in a plant or an animal, consumed, digested, and deposited in your skeleton. The nitrogen in your proteins was, within the last several weeks, part of the soil, the rain, or the body of another organism. You are, in a measurable and direct sense, a temporary structure assembled from borrowed atoms. The isotope researcher Margaret Schoeninger at the University of California, San Diego, spent decades developing techniques to trace the origin of atoms in human bodies. Using ratios of stable isotopes, carbon-13 to carbon-12, nitrogen-15 to nitrogen-14, she and her colleagues could determine what a person had eaten for years before their death and where that food had been grown. The isotope signature of a diet is written into the collagen of bone and the protein of hair. In living humans, this means the atoms in your body carry a chemical record of your history, the geographies and food chains that built you. But it also means those atoms are continuously being swapped out. The atoms inside you are not yours in any permanent sense. They are on loan. You are a pattern that borrows matter from the world, uses it briefly, and returns it. There is a third layer of instability beneath the atomic. Your DNA, the molecular blueprint instructing every cell how to function, is not perfectly copied each time a cell divides. The machinery responsible for replicating DNA makes errors. On average, each cell division introduces approximately 1 to 2 mutations per billion base pairs. Your genome contains approximately 3 billion base pairs, which means that each time a cell divides, there is a statistical expectation of several errors somewhere in the copy. Over a lifetime of cell division, across tens of trillions of cells, the accumulated mutations in your somatic cells number in the billions. The cells in your skin, your colon, and your liver are not running the same molecular program you were born with. They are running a program with accumulated revisions, some harmless, some repaired, some occasionally catastrophic. A 2018 study by researchers at the Wellcome Sanger Institute in Cambridge analyzed somatic mutations in normal, healthy human skin. They found that by middle age, every square centimeter of normal skin contains hundreds of clones of cells carrying mutations in cancer-associated genes. The same skin that looks unchanged in the mirror is, at the molecular level, a mosaic of subtly different genetic variants, accumulating silently over decades. You are not just physically new, you are genetically drifted. The instructions running your body today are not identical to the ones that ran it at birth. They are a revised edition, with corrections, annotations, and errors in the margins. And yet, against all of this continuous change, one system in the body operates differently: the brain. Most neurons, the cells constituting the circuitry of your mind, are not replaced. Jonas Frisen's bomb pulse technique revealed that the vast majority of neurons in the human cerebral cortex are as old as you are. They were formed before birth or in the first years of life, and they have persisted since. The cells that fired when you first heard your name, when you first felt fear, when you first understood a sentence, those same cells are still there. There is a small region of the hippocampus where limited neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons, has been observed in adults. But its extent and significance in humans remains actively debated. For most of the brain, the neurons are original. But the neurons are not the complete story of what you are. Neurons communicate through synapses, junctions where signals pass from one cell to another. And synapses are not static. The connections between neurons, their strength, their number, their exact pattern, change continuously in response to experience, learning, and memory. Sebastian Seung, a neuroscientist at Princeton University, has argued that personal identity lives not in the neurons themselves, but in the connectome, the complete map of all synaptic connections in the brain. His 2012 book, Connectome, propose that you are not your neurons. You are the pattern of their connections. That pattern changes when you learn something new, form a memory, fall in love, or grieve a loss. And that pattern is what persists when your skin renews, your liver rebuilds, and your skeleton remakes itself. The philosopher Derek Parfit, in his 1984 book Reasons and Persons, reached the same conclusion from the philosophical direction. Parfit argued that personal identity is not constituted by physical continuity. It is constituted by psychological continuity, the chain of memories, intentions, and personality traits connecting earlier versions of you to later ones. John Locke had intuited this in the 17th century. He argued that personal identity follows consciousness, specifically the thread of memory connecting past experience to present awareness. You are not the substance of your body. You are the thread of experience running through it. What modern biology has done is confirm, with isotopes and radiocarbon dating and genomic sequencing, what philosophers arrived at through reasoning alone. The physical substrate is continuously replaced. The pattern that organizes the substrate is what persists, and the pattern is what you are. Come back to your hands. The atoms in them arrived from somewhere else. Food eaten last year, water drunk last month, air breathed last week. Before that, those atoms were in the soil, in the ocean, in the bodies of other living things. Before that, they were forged in the cores of stars that exploded before the solar system existed. The carbon in your hands was manufactured in a supernova billions of years before you were born. It has been part of countless structures, rocks, oceans, organisms, in the time since. For a brief window of years, it is part of you. Then it will leave and become part of something else. You are a temporary pattern in an ancient and continuous flow of matter. The childhood you remember was experienced by a body with entirely different atoms than this one. The person in your earliest photograph is connected to you by memory, by pattern, by the continuous thread of experience, but not by matter. Not a single atom in your body right now was present in that photograph. Every physical component has been exchanged. And yet, you remember. The memory is real. The grief you carry for things that happened to that childhood body is real. The love you feel for people who knew earlier versions of you is real. The continuity is real. It is simply not located where we assumed it was. It is not in the atoms. It is in the pattern that the atoms have been arranged into, and continue to be arranged into, across the entire arc of your existence. Hobbes asked which Ship of Theseus was the real one, the one with the original wood, or the one with the original form. The biology suggests a third answer. The real Ship of Theseus is neither the wood nor the form preserved in amber. It is the ongoing process of maintenance itself, the continuous act of replacing, repairing, and rebuilding while holding the pattern intact. You are not a thing. You are a process running for every year of your life, using different matter at different times, maintaining a pattern complex enough to contain memory, consciousness, and the experience of being a self. The atoms will continue to cycle out. The body you inhabit in 10 years will be built from atoms that are right now in the food you haven't yet eaten, in the water you haven't yet drunk, in the air surrounding you. Those atoms will become you, and then they will leave and become something else. Heraclitus, who lived 4 centuries before Plutarch, said that you cannot step into the same river twice. He meant that the river is always different, new water, new sediment, new temperature. But he also meant that it is still, unmistakably, the same river. You are like this. The matter composing you has largely cycled through over the past decade. But the pattern, the memories, the habits, the voice, the specific constellation of experiences that make you recognizable to yourself and to others, persists. That pattern is you, and it is more durable than any individual atom. You are not the material. You are what the material is doing. You have never been the planks. You have always been the ship, and the ship is still sailing.